Yeah, and here we are back at Candu FM with RLK's Head of Welfare, Steve McCormack. Welcome back, Steve. Before this session, we were talking about how tough a sport and how brutal rugby league can be, and a lot of the issues that are now being looked at by lots of people within the game. You must come across a real variety of issues and problems, some of which is associated with injury and how people transition from the professional game to a life of normality, really. So how do you go about sort of mentoring someone to take them on that journey?
Yeah, I think it's a really important question, Tony, that, and a tough question as well. I think what we find is, when players maybe have to finish or they have long-term injuries, the physios and the medical staff at each club do a wonderful job. But we've recently brought in what we call a dual-track injury programme, which, the likeliness of somebody getting injured within our sport is pretty high. It's a contact tough sport, as we've said a few times on here. So, it's putting things in place alongside the actual physical recovery. So, the player gets injured, maybe gets an ACL injury. There's things they can do, away from that treatment bench that can aid the recovery. So it's not just a matter of them doing rehab, looking after the actual physical injury. It's making sure that they're kept engaged within the squad. They still have a purpose. They can focus on other things as well as their injury as well. Their injury is really important, but they can start looking at career action plans. Putting things in place alongside that. Rugby League has got a grants system as well, which each Super League players at the moment can access grants. Last year we gave over £50,000 to players to engage in different careers. It might be HGV licenses and tests. It might be, qualifying to be an electrician. So that's something that a lot of people don't realise. So alongside the actual physical recovery, the players can do an awful lot as well. And I think it's educating the clubs, and we'll look at that. The player welfare managers do a good job in that. And you need buy-in from all the stakeholders with that. The CEOs, the head coaches, the physios, the players' families and partners, because it can be a tough time getting injured. But these programs that we've put in place certainly help.
Yeah, it must be a hell of a task, Steve. I mean, you're not going to please all the people all of the time, are you? And you must hear things on a regular basis that you think, oh, how can I help this individual? Or what's the next step here? What's the right way? What should have done that better? I mean, you must be reviewing your interface all the time. It must be very difficult.
Yeah, it's difficult, but it's a privileged position. It's not just myself. We've got a good team, and all the player welfare managers, all the staff at Rugby League have access to supervision with counsellors as well. So if there's things that players that we support who the players offload quite a bit on the player welfare managers and ourselves, and that's what we want them to do. We want them to do that, and that's happening more and more in our game. Years and years ago, it was just crack on, don't speak about anything, get on with it. Yeah. Now it's changing, and it still needs to change more. But certainly, what we've seen over the last few years is, players are willing to speak more, and players are willing to be a lot more open in social media and are advocates for the welfare programme and the wellbeing programme. And it can be tough. It can be really tough. But I've said it on numerous occasions on this call. Privileged position, absolutely privileged position. And as a sport, we want to be pioneers in making sure that our players are looked after. And as you said, you can't please everybody all the time.
No,
we are here to help. And we're here to help, and we're here to support. And the charity as well does a lot with the community, with the offload programme. The charity as well, as part of the charity is the Benevolent Fund, which some of the players who unfortunately have had injuries or or unfortunately have passed away on the field. You know, we've tried to support, you know, the families as well. So that's an important part of the charity.
I suppose as well, Steve, that Super League being sort of full-time professional, the transition journey for those individuals, I'm assuming, I might, well, you'll tell me if I'm right or not, their journey is more difficult than people who play for the Whitehavens and Barrows of this world, who usually have a job. So they'll either work at Sellafield or BA Systems if they're in Barrow, whatever. And when they stop playing rugby, they've sort of got that job to sort of walk into. But if you're a Super League player, if you don't go into coaching or some other support role within the game, I suppose the question is, what am I going to do now? You know?
Yeah, probably two things on that. I think it's a great question, that. And you're right with regards to Super League players, you know, and that's making sure that the transition is a bit smoother. So, you know, we've the sport, and it was myself 2 years ago, was the first transition manager that the sport had. And that's looking at, you know, an example of that is we put a programme in place for the 28 age group plus, which were maybe 5 years from retiring, if they're lucky, you know, just to ensure that they have the career plans and access to financial support and financial advice, etc. Transition for us is players going from scholarship to academy to first team to 28 plus, and past players, and then you've got players going from full-time to part-time. But it's tough as well, part-time players finishing playing. Really tough, you know, you mentioned about them already having jobs, and it may be a little bit easier. In some cases it is, but there's nothing like that camaraderie of a changing room and that adrenaline buzz when you're walking out that tunnel at Barrow, Workington, Whitehaven, Wigan, wherever that is. There's nothing can substitute that. And I had a bit of a snippet of that in the grand final 2017. You know, lucky enough to go out of Old Trafford when I was working with Wigan.
Yeah.
And when you hit that field and that noise, and there's 60,000 people there, and the adrenaline, and I wasn't playing, I was just a staff with headphones and sending messages on. But to do that week in, week out, whether there's 60,000 on or 6 people on, that, you know, finishing playing is tough, whether it's part-time or full-time. But the aim of certainly the wellbeing programme is to make sure that transition gets a little bit smoother.
So that's interesting, Steve. So what you're saying there is a lot of people, no matter what level you're playing at, they miss that buzz, they miss that camaraderie. They don't want to give that up. They probably play longer than they should be playing, a lot of people, because of that. And so that's interesting. That it's a bit like a drug in a way, isn't it? You know, it's like the stand-up comedian. Once he comes off the stage, it's, I've got to go back to normality. You know.
Exactly right. And they love what they're doing. Players love what they're doing, you know, and they've got friends, they've got colleagues, you know, they feel valued, they feel loved by the supporters. And once that's gone, that phone stops ringing. You know, that you're not in the limelight, you're soon forgotten. You know, and that's where sometimes our sport really comes to the fore. You know, we look after each other. But it's a fact, you know, when you're not in that limelight, and, you know, there's people ready to take your place, and it's tough. So hopefully, you know, things that people can put in place, and it might just be a catch up on the phone. You know, the importance and you know, just connecting and staying connected with your teammates and, you know, your coaches. Maybe not your coaches. You know, you might not like the coaches, but you know, just staying connected is really important, and having that purpose and still feeling valued. And whether you're full time or whether you're part time, that's a crucial role of transition.
Yeah. Because one thing I have observed, Steve, and here at Barrow in particular, I've been going since I was a kid, but there's a lot of ex-players who you never really see at Craven Park. You get one or two, there's always one or two who'll turn up and support the club, but by and large, those who have played and were very, very popular when they were playing and that, sometimes you say, I haven't seen him for a couple of years. They don't tend to bother to come back and watch. Do you think there's a reason for that? Is it to do with that buzz that you're talking about?
It could be, individual. You know, some people just when they finish the game, they don't want anything to do with it.
Mm.
You know, it's been part of their life since they was 6 years of age. So
yeah,
they want that clean break, and they have to have that clean break. For some, they love coming back, you know, and socialising and watching the club. For some, it's painful coming back because they reminisce and they want to be back on that field. And so everybody's different, Tony. They're really different. And, you know, a lot of clubs say, oh, you know, you should come back. You know, it's not the case. Everybody is different. I think the real thing that's important is having that option to come back. You know, having past players associations, having functions where not only the players but the families and partners can come back as well. You know, it's their choice then if they want to come back. But I do think it's important, and I think we do a good job of it. Most clubs value the past players. Back at Barrow, I mean, some of the past players at Barrow, when I went there, the first thing I did was look at the history of the club. Unbelievable players, absolutely unbelievable players. And, you know, it's to keep connecting with them and offering the chance to come back if possible, whether they take that up or not. You know, remains to be seen, but it's important that they have that option, I think.
Now, Steve, you appear to be one of the cleverest blokes in this field in the land, because you've just completed a level 4 certificate in elite athlete wellbeing. So, what was all that about? What was the general summarisation of that qualification, Steve? And how has it held you in good stead for what you're doing?
Tony, anybody who knows me knows I'm not one of the cleverest people in the land. I get a gold medal for trying, that's for sure. Right. But it was a brilliant qualification. Initially, it's the benchmark for the NRL wellbeing managers. So that was when it first came out. So basically, it's a bespoke qualification to work with elite athletes. So it was over in Loughborough this time last year.
Right.
Fantastic. So there was a number of specialists of wellbeing from different sports attended, and you know we had it's 12 months to take the qualification, and it just focused on a holistic view of how we can support our athletes and staff and families, and I thought it was brilliant. Really, really was good. So there's a couple of us qualified in this country now. I think by the end of this year there'll be a few more. The plan is to come back over and do it again. So a lot of the governing bodies from different sports are going to get their wellbeing managers qualified in it. And there's also, you know, qualifications that we can take in England as well. You know, with TAS are looking at putting some good qualifications in, and it certainly helped. It certainly helped my development, and I think that's important with CPD as well. You never want to stand still in this job, and anything you can do to filter through to the rest of the game is important, and I loved it. I loved every minute of it. Good.
Now, of course, that's got you in a position now, Steve, where you're part of the England setup with the forthcoming World Cup that's going to be held in this country in October. So, how are you looking forward to getting involved with Sean Wayne and the England team?
I can't wait. It's a big focus at the end of the year. Really lucky, Tony, to be involved in the last 3 World Cups with Scotland. So 2008, you know, in Australia, then 2013, where we were based in Workington, and then 2017. And you know, to be involved in this World Cup, a home World Cup, to be involved with England, to be involved with Sean. Sean again is brilliant, and it's just a 1%er. You know, that England have never had that. So it's just, you know, at the moment overseeing the actual welfare of the 3 teams that's taking part. So the men, the women, and the wheelchair. So myself will be, you know, with Sean and the team, and we've got a couple of other people, outstanding people who's going to be with the other 2 teams as well. And it's just that extra 1%, you know. And if that can make that difference, then you know, and goes towards 3 of us winning the World Cup, then we'll be more than happy.
Absolutely. I saw a quote somewhere, Steve, that said something like, a player cannot perform to his absolute best unless his life off the pitch is in a similar vein. So, you know, you can't have somebody who's got all these problems in the world at home, in his private life or whatever, expect to perform at an optimum level on the pitch. You've got to try and get that balance. And I suppose that's the real crux of your job in many ways, isn't it? Getting people mentally fit as well as being physically fit.
Yeah, I think it's working towards that. I mean, there's very early players playing who are absolutely flying and buzzing both on and off the field. There's always, the key to the job is just working towards what we call flourishing. So just making sure that the players have got an avenue to talk. The trust is a big part of our role, and that takes time. That you can get trust within 10 seconds, or you can get takes you 10 years, or sometimes you don't get that. But there's definitely evidence to suggest that a flourishing player off the field performs better on me, and that's the key, and that's something that, knowing Sean as I know him, he leaves no stone unturned to get the best out of his players. He's fantastic what he does both on and off the field, and he values his staff. So his coaching staff and his backroom staff are really important to him, and just delighted that the England performance unit and the RFL and Rugby League have combined to give this option to all the teams.
Yeah, I mean, let's hope we do win the World Cup, Steve. It's long overdue, isn't it? But it's always the Australians who are the main guys to beat, aren't they? I mean, they're on their day, they're absolutely fantastic, but they seem to have a lot of issues in Australia. I don't know if it's to do with the weather and the lifestyle or whatever, but it must be very, very difficult to be very disciplined in the national sport of Australia and sort of keep your head together,
Yeah, it is, and it's the same as anything. It comes down to culture, doesn't it, and your environment that you give the players. And you mentioned about Australia on the day, very, very difficult to beat. So are England. If England fire on all cylinders and all the players, who I know get picked, they'll be well coached. We can match anybody on our day and beat them.
Yeah.
So no doubt about it. At our best, consistently best, we can win that World Cup. And that's maybe in the past, then 1%ers we may not have done. I don't know. I've not been involved in the camps, but I know being in the meetings that we've had so far and the planning meetings, no stone left unturned for this tournament, and everybody involved in the camp. High standards. That's what Sean does. Very, very high standards. But yeah, can't wait. It'd be absolutely fantastic.
Oh yeah. I think the first game's at St James's Park, Steve, isn't it, against Samoa?
A real good one. A good venue as well.
Yeah,
fantastic venue being up there. But that'll be Samoa. And you mentioned Australia, but there's the Kiwis, there's Samoa, there's Tonga. It's just, and then Scotland. I were really proud. We beat Fiji, we beat Tonga. The Scotland team. So the home nations teams on their day can cause an upset, so you can't take anybody lightly. But that first game against Samoa was going to be an absolute cracker. I
mean, it's absolutely fantastic that Rugby League's going to be, I think it's going to be on terrestrial TV, isn't it? It's going to be on the BBC and ITV, and that's only good for the game, isn't it, Steve? Because after this year, one of the sports that's really, really suffered, I would think, is Rugby League. And, a lot of clubs below Super League aren't awash with a lot of money, are they? And there's going to have to be quite a bit of support put in place, I think. So what's your vision of the future? What do you think is going to happen in the next year or two generally in Rugby League? Do you see a bright future, or is there some real issues that need to be addressed? We've just had Robert Elstone resigning as chief executive. Do you think there might be more integration into the RFL? I mean, there's lots of unanswered questions at the moment, isn't there?
Yeah, and there's probably better qualified people to answer than me. What I will say is Rugby League has gone through a lot of issues for a lot of years and always survived because of the people involved in it. The best sport in the world for me. And, you look at the coronavirus and what's happened over the last 12 months, there's been a lot of hardship. A lot of clubs have really, really struggled. The furlough scheme has probably helped a little bit with a lot, both the Super League and the Championship and League One clubs. But it's been a massive pressure. You mentioned Robert. Robert's been under massive pressure. Super League have the RFL. The CEOs of every club's the chairman of the Championship and League One club. So a lot of stress, a lot of hardship, and who knows what can happen. I think it's made people really sit back and have a think about the future, and that's only good for the game now. You know, whether there is a bit more of an alignment between Super League and RFL, I'm not sure. You know, that I know for a fact Ralph Rim has done a fantastic job with the work that he's done, and I probably see firsthand a lot of the stuff that they actually do. I sound independent from that, but some of the work and some of the things that as a sport we've had to do, and everybody's had to do, it's been unbelievable. A lot of unseen work that a lot of people deserve an awful lot of credit for, and we'll survive the sport. I think we've got a tough 12 months, maybe tough 18 months. But we'll come through that as we always do.
The World Cup should help, shouldn't it? I would think. Yeah,
absolutely. And fingers crossed we get crowds, packed houses.
Yeah,
who knows what can happen? You know, everybody gets the vaccine, and fingers crossed we can have a full house at Old Trafford with an England win.
Right, Steve, final question. Now, Wigan Athletic football team, they're not doing so good, are they?
Tragic what's happened with that, Tony. Absolutely tragic. We had a great win last night. 2 on the bounce now, so Plymouth away last night, 2-0.
Okay.
But that's the unpredictability of sport. You know, last year they was flying, killing it. Paul Cook, who were doing really good. Brilliant to watch. You know, that's some great times with them, FA Cups and promotions, but the owners pulled out, administration, and bang. And what's happened to the club is, and the staff and the players is tragic, but we're on the way back. Well,
one of the things I'm looking forward to, Steve, is Barra Soccer playing at the DW Stadium next year.
Brilliant. Well, do you know? Oh no, I actually follow Barrow as well. I watch him. You know, it's always a, you know, whenever there are results. So I look at my old clubs and even the football and whatever. So we need to be, Wigan Athletic needs to stay in this division. That's the key. But that's not to say I don't wish, unless Barrow get promoted.
No, they won't get promoted this year, but
well, hopefully Wigan won't get relegated. So fingers crossed.
We just want to stay in League Two, mate, don't we?
Yeah, but they've done great, and that's a great journey. Great journey for Barrow.
48 years of hurt, that, Steve. 48 years, unbelievable.
Wow.
Right, mate. It's been great talking here. It's been great to see you once again. You're doing a fantastic job at Rugby League Cares. I think they've got the right guy for that job. You've got all that experience. And I just wish you well in the future, and particularly with your role in the World Cup, Steve. So thanks very much for coming on Can Do FM.
Thanks, Tony. Thanks for having us on.
Great stuff. Thanks, Steve. See you again, mate. Yeah, I'm absolutely delighted that tonight on Can Do FM, we've got Steve McCormack, who is the head of welfare at Rugby League Cares. Thanks for coming on the show tonight, Steve.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Tony. Good to see you again.
Yeah, it's been a few years. We're just saying since we saw each other when you first came to my house when I was on the board at Barrow Rugby. That was 15 years ago. Unbelievable.
Wow. A lot of things have happened since then, haven't they? But yeah, they were good times. All
right, Steve. So you've got this role at RL Cares, but before we get into that, I'd like to sort of take us back to when you were a youngster and you started playing rugby league. I believe that when you were 17/18, you got a really serious shoulder injury, which prevented you from playing again. So would you like to sort of talk us through that period when you were, I think you were playing for England schoolboys at the time, were you?
Yeah, again, it seems an awful long time ago now, but it stuck with me. It's definitely stuck with me. It was being a Wigan lad, you know, you just wanted to play rugby. You know, I'm a big football fan as well. I love my Wigan Athletic as well, but I was a footballer up until 12, 13 years of age, and then went to a Deanery High School, which is a rugby school, and just took to it, just loved the game, loved everything about the game, the contact, you know, just it's a tough sport, real tough sport, as you know, Tony, and absolutely loved it, and was fortunate enough to play for England schools, and you know, I went to Wigan then. It was the old academy, which was the old DDA, which is District Development Association. Then when I was there, and you know, just training at Central Park and going to Central Park 2 or 3 times a week for me was fantastic. And then unfortunately, I damaged my shoulder. I had a a couple of operations when I was pretty young on it, and kept trying to come back and just couldn't do it. You know, just kept going. You know, the very first tackle after me rehab and everything, and you know, I was shattered. You know, it was you know, my dream was ended, so to speak. Then, and I may not have been good enough to play and have a good career at Wigan or anywhere else, but it was a tough time, and you know, one that I look back on now, and certainly in the job I'm in, I can probably draw on some of those experiences that some of the other players are now going through.
So, did you actually have to stop playing at that age, Steve, or did you actually go on and play some professional rugby league, or was that it from a playing point of view?
That was it. Yeah, I had 17 years of age. I had my first operation and reconstruction. Wow. It was a Wigan surgeon that had that done with, and tried to make a comeback and did everything I possibly could, and then played again. And it was at training. My shoulder just went again, so I had a revision reconstruction. And then I had a couple more as well, just to see if we could fix it. You know, just the bone, what they call a capsular shift, which in them days was a pretty revolutionary operation. And it was the best surgeon, but just couldn't get back, and still suffering from that now a little bit. I've been told I need a shoulder replacement, so I'm just wow. holding that off. Holding that off at the moment. I don't really want to have that, but I saw a different consultant, obviously, just before Christmas. Had all my scans and stuff, and yeah, it was a tough time, that injury and trying to get back, and the rehab, and then all the pressure that came with it. But it led me on a different path, and that path is something that I'll always be thankful for.
So I assume then, Steve, that you had to sort of go and get a proper job, but then how did you sort of then get back into rugby league? Because you became the youngest coach in rugby league, I believe, at Salford when you were only 28.
Yeah, I went working as a health and fitness manager at Robin Park in Wigan, which is now Wigan's training ground. They just moved there recently. I loved it. You know, I was head of the gym, and they had what they called GP referrals then. So, you know, doctors would send, some of the patients to us, and we'd try and fix them up with exercise regimes, and absolutely loved it. And then Andy Gregory, who was my hero at the time, growing up, probably 1993, came and brought his Salford team to Robin Park, and I did some fitness work with them, and knew Greg really, really well, and he always promised me that if they ever got into Super League, that he'd give me an opportunity, and that continued every week for a couple of years, and then my first breakthrough season was 1995, the centenary season. Unbelievable times, and Salford gained promotion, and I went there as academy coach, and absolutely loved it, and fortunately we did okay, and just had 7 good years at Salford. You know, I progressed in, the assistant coach, and then first team coach in 2001. 2001, and it was good. That was a tough time as well. I took over a team from John Harvey that was really, really struggling, and probably it was a little bit too early for me as well. You know, I was probably doing okay as an assistant. Won the first few games, and very proud of it, everything going well. And then the second season, we won 2 out of 11 in the first, and it was just that pressure, and coaching at Super League is relentless, and every week. So yeah, I left Salford, but real fond memories of it, and I wouldn't change anything I did there.
Now, I think you really came to prominence, Steve, and in this part of the country of Cumbria as well, with your stint at Whitehaven. I mean, at the time, I was actually working at Sellafield, which isn't far from Whitehaven, of course, and a lot of the board I used to work with as well, Barry Richardson, Dave Farrell, etc. So I knew the buzz that was up there at Sellafield with all of the Whitehaven supporters, and you really got them to levels that they hadn't seen for many, many, many years. So what was that experience like at Whitehaven, getting to those 2 grand finals and all the success that you had?
Unbelievable. Something that I'm really, really proud of. And you've mentioned a couple of people there in Barry and Dave, and Barry for me is I can't thank him enough when I look at the journey and been fortunate to do what I've done in the game. A lot of it is down to Barry giving me that opportunity, and I can't thank him enough for that. And I remember going up to Penrith for the interview. What a horrible night, horrible drive, fog, rain, hailstorm, and I thought, I'm not sure if this is for me.
That was in the summer.
The confidence. That was in the summer, yeah. And the confidence was shot a little bit, as you do when things don't go well. But the characters and the passion that board showed in that meeting at Penrith, Kenny Shepherd, what a guy Kenny was, and God bless him, and Des Byrne was there, and Ron Batty, Ron Batty. I'm so thankful for the support he gave me up there, and I came away from that meeting absolutely galvanised, a different person, and the time I had up there was brilliant. Not only on the field, but off the field as well. Met a lot of people that I can now call friends as well, and the community, the club, the supporters, everybody got behind us. And I look back, and my family looks back now, and it was a fantastic time, and one that I'll always be grateful for.
Yeah, I think I detected when I was up there, Steve, that there was this special relationship between you and the chairman, and I think that went a long way in the success. You need that support, don't you, really?
Yeah, and I remember the first season, Tony, we was up there. It was a tough season, that. We had a good run, good Northern Rail Cup run, and then we had a few dodgy results, and I was feeling the pressure a little bit myself, just after obviously what happened at Salford, and I always remember sitting down with Barry, and we had 2 or 3 beatings, tough beatings, and I'm thinking, it's happening again. This, I was just doubting myself as well, and as we all do sometimes. I don't care what anybody says, we all do.
Yeah.
And I remember meeting with Barry, and that was in Zest in Whitehaven. I remember back yesterday. Yeah, I think all the meetings were held in there, and I said, we're having a tough time, and then he just offered me another contract. He said, we're really pleased with what you do. We really believe in what you're doing. We'll back you. We've got a long-term plan. And that again was something, from going into that meeting thinking, we've lost a couple of games here, to coming out with an honest gentleman in Barry, but very well driven as well. He's maybe a bit misunderstood sometimes, Barry, as far as he's a lovely bloke, but he's really driven and he's really passionate about what he does. Yeah. And I think between us, I think you're only as good as your top man at a club and everybody involved in it, and that's from the chairman to the kit man. So I put Jimmy Clements and everybody else in that. It was a club that we galvanised, and Paul Cullen did a great job prior to me coming in. That was the start of the process. Yeah. But from Barry to the board of directors, to the players, to the staff, to the community, they all bought into it, and we had a fantastic time, and we just didn't get over the line. We had some good efforts at it. When you look on paper, we shouldn't have been anywhere near Castleford, with the budgets and stuff. But the league grand final was brilliant. What a game that was. Good in history as one of the best, certainly championship grand finals. And then we're just really disappointed in the last one, against Cass to finish on that. But that journey from start to the end of my time at Whitehaven was unbelievable.
Well, I remember coming up, Steve, to watch the semi-final against Castleford at the recreation ground. I think you were 18-0 down after 20 minutes or something, and it looked as if you were going to get absolutely hammered, and you came back and beat them 30-something, I believe, when I think Dave Woods was the manager of Castleford, and it was a fantastic atmosphere. I'll always remember it because I went there. It was absolutely jam-packed, and I've never seen the recreation ground like that since. But it was a special atmosphere, and even me as a true Barrow supporter, I was really pleased that Whitehaven were that far from Super League.
That game again, the atmosphere was unbelievable. And I remember we was under the pump in the first half, but just just the last 5-10 minutes, we started getting back into the game, and then something special sometimes happened at Whitehaven when you're playing towards the Kells end. And at half time, I remember saying that to the players, and not one person in that dressing room didn't think that we'd come back. I know it's very easy saying that now because we did do, but
yeah,
we had some momentum, we had some great players, and when we was up against the Kells, going towards the Kells end, we knew the first 5 or 10 minutes, if we could get an early score, the recreation ground would be absolutely bouncing, and it was. And the scenes, winning that game and then collecting the trophy after it, and the party after it was unbelievable. And the good memories, the real good memories there.
Now, one of the things that intrigued me, Steve, was that did you travel 2-3 nights a week to train the team at Whitehaven while you were there?
For the majority of the time, I did. Yeah, I wanted to take my young ones to school and see them before they went to bed. So I did a lot of travelling, an awful lot of travelling. But I also stayed up there as well. Lynn and Gary Barwise, kindly opened up the house to me.
Right.
It was above a chippy, which didn't do me any good. Living away from home, but they were brilliant for me. They really looked after me as I was one of their own. So when I did stay up, I stayed at Gary and Lynn's. But I did travel. Travel majority of the time and spent hours and hours on that motorway. All sorts of weathers and stuff like that. But I'd do it again. I would do it again, and I don't regret anything. I remember, certain things. I look at photographs now of my family, and I don't remember them because I spent quite a bit of time away from home. But I think we all do that at times. It was out of my comfort zone, but I think the fact that when I got up there and when my family went up there, they were looked after so well, and we were doing that well, was superb.
Yeah, there was a real variety of fabulous players up there, Steve, at the time. I remember there was Gary Broadbent, who obviously was from Barrow and eventually came back to play for the town. And there was the Aaron Lesters, the Leroy Joes, the David Seeds, the Craig Calverts on the wing. But there was one guy who I used to think, wow, why is he not playing Super League? And he had this sort of very laissez-faire approach about him, but he was absolutely massive. And then if you give him the ball near the try line, there's no way you're going to stop him. And he was a fantastic goal kicker as well. And that was Mick Nanning. How special was he at Whitehaven? Or was he a bit of a difficult coach? Was he okay?
Oh, no, definitely not difficult, Mick. I mean, Mick used to travel up.
Right.
Yeah, just what you saw on the field was what you saw, what you got off it. Very laid back character. If you put Mick's name in Google, or you look at his career and the amount of points he scored, it's unbelievable. And then when I left Barrow, when I left work at Whitehaven, he came to Widnes as well and carried on that in the same vein. Fantastic off the field as well. Real good, hard working, honest person, and he was phenomenal for Whitehaven. And you mentioned all those players like Aaron and Seeds and Craig Calvert. They were great, but you look at players who would be the first on the team sheet, people like Howard Hill, David Fatialofa, just good, honest, tough players. Wesley Wilson that first season, was absolutely superb. And then, I think it was important the travellers that were brought up added something. Mick Nanning did that, and certainly Sam Hobbs did that in his time. And then,
I remember him.
We had Ryan Tandy, Joel Penny. So I think the core of local players and the ones that we had to bring in from outside the area had to be special. And I think we did okay in doing that.
So after the success at Whitehaven, Steve, you went and coached many other teams. You went to Widnes, for example, got them to the league playoff final. You went to Swinton, even Gateshead. You then became international manager of Scotland. So there's a real variety of clubs there, Steve, but you haven't coached now for quite a while. Would you ever consider going back into coaching?
I don't think yet. You never say never, Tony. I've kept my hand in with England Lions. coaching the under 16s, which I love. We played against Australia. Well, it's 2 years ago now with the COVID. So I'd never say never. But I love my job now. I was really fortunate to coach in the clubs and Scotland and in World Cups. Really, it's took me all over the world. Coaching. But this is my passion. I really enjoy this. I think it's really important, and thankfully the game takes welfare and well-being really, really seriously. And to be in the job I'm in, it's a privileged position, and absolutely loving it.
And I suppose all those experiences, Steve, has held you in good stead for this position, because, I don't know, I wasn't in the professional game or anything like that, but I would have thought that mental well-being and things of this nature, there wasn't a lot of that around back then, was there?
I think there was, but probably wasn't. Didn't have the processes in place. I think everybody always cared. I think we're as a rugby league community, all clubs, wherever you go, whether that is playing in the community game or in the professional game, the tough people. I think we're tough people, tough communities, hard-working communities, and we genuinely care, about people's well-being and welfare. I think as far as having a blueprint and some processes, that's been put in place over the last maybe 7 or 8 years, and we're really lucky as a sport. I think rugby league is probably seen as one of the best practices with regards to putting things in place like that, and we can improve things, and we're always looking to improve. But I'm really proud of what rugby league do with regards to looking after players, and not only like what rugby league do, but the actual communities and everybody involved in the game. When something happens, when we need to pull together, we always do, and I always think that will continue.
So, in terms of being head of well-being now at England RL Cares, Steve, what's a typical week of Steve McCormack like now? I know it's pandemic time and it's probably sort of unsettled things somewhat, but what would be a typical week for you?
I don't think it's a typical week, Tony, in my role. The key is the RFL and Super League gave Rugby League Cares, which is an independent charity, the role in working the welfare policy. That was in 2019. So we set like the blueprints and the policies, and I oversee that in constant contact with all the player welfare managers at the clubs. The Super League clubs have full-time player welfare managers; they have to have them. Championship and League One have designated wellbeing leads, so I contact them, and then it's continually monitoring that. And there's players that can contact myself and Rugby League Cares, others being independent, and we can support them with anything really. There's a few players who unfortunately end up in tough spots, in crisis, and we support them from a confidential point of view. We're looking at being really proactive, putting a holistic plan in place to look at transition, making sure players have got, career plans and good finances, good mental health. We obviously looking at some of the England programmes now from a wellbeing point of view. So England men, England women, and England wheelchair. But no week or no day is the same in this role. It's probably 24/7, same as coaching. The phone's always on, and some of the phone calls we get are tough phone calls, but it's just really privileged to be in a position where we can help people.
So, in general terms, Steve, not without any confidentiality, anything like that, but what are the biggest issues in rugby league that you have to deal with from that perspective?
Just the same as anybody else in the community, Tony. People think that professional sports players, they earn loads of money, they go and throw a ball about on a Thursday, Friday, Saturday, or Sunday. What have they got to worry about? Well, we're the same as anybody else. We suffer from anxiety, depression. There can be things happening in their life that, grief, finance problems, addiction, just exactly the same as anybody else. So we try and give them a voice really, so they can contact people within their own sport, their own club, or they can come up independently with us. And we have a great relationship with Sporting Chance, which is a charity that Tony Adams set up.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah,
which I work closely with, and we work closely with. So yeah, we no day's ever the same, but and we've got some fantastic stories, as well with players who have maybe been in crisis who are now doing really, really well, and also players who've retired, who's got their own businesses, are thriving and flourishing, and the families are doing really, really well. So it is that holistic view of making sure that the player is doing really well both on and off the field, and the partners and the families as well.
Yeah, there's a bit of an issue now, Steve, in the sort of national press and everything, isn't there? There's this focus on concussion injuries and possibly leading to dementia and all this sort of thing. And there's a few players out there who will be starting legal action in some cases, aren't there? I mean, do you ever get involved in, I don't know, looking after people who may be in that situation?
We have dialogue with a lot of players, Tony, and that's, there's some sad stories, not only in rugby league but just in general. You've mentioned dementia there, and that affects so many in the community. And I'm privileged to sometimes, just even if it's just sitting in some of the work that the foundations do. So sporting memories, so players and supporters who are, and families who are maybe suffering from dementia, they have the meeting groups and they reminisce about, like, similar to what we're doing, about the great days. As far as the clinical side of it, there's more qualified people than me what deal with that, the medical side. And rugby league has got a lot of protocols in place, and has had for a long time. And we're just looking at all the practices now, and I know it's very prominent. Rugby union and football, American football, and rugby league, and we're looking to be as safe a sport as we possibly can.
Yeah, I mean, as you mentioned yourself, Steve, at times rugby league, well, it's a very, very tough sport, and it can be brutal. And at the highest level, even international level, yeah, I mean, you've got to be absolutely super fit, haven't you, to withstand some of the hits and things of that nature. So it can be very, very dangerous. You think rugby league is going to survive the focus, if you like, by other parties? Is there any way it might have to be diluted in terms of contact, or I don't know?
I'm not sure is the answer, Tony. I'm really not sure.